The limestone wall felt cold against his palms. He pulled himself upward, finding purchase in gaps no wider than a coin. Below, the palace courtyard lay in deep shadow, silent save for the rhythmic crunch of boots on gravel. He reached the high window and slipped through, landing without a sound on the floor. He pressed himself into the darkness behind a marble pillar as a patrol passed, their torches casting flickering light against the stone. Once they moved on, he crossed to the treasury door. He worked the lock with a thin wire, feeling the tumblers click into place. The heavy iron swung open. Inside, a blue sapphire pulsed with a rhythmic, unnatural light, resting beside a weathered parchment map. Suddenly, the palace alarm shattered the silence. A bell tolled, echoing through the halls. He did not hesitate. He sprinted toward the balcony, vaulted over the stone railing, and dropped into the dark garden below. He hit the ground running. Dawn broke over the city gates, casting long shadows across the sand. The scholar waited by the stone archway, her fingers tapping against the map. He arrived on horseback, the sapphire still tucked away. Without a word, they turned toward the dunes. The desert was a shifting sea of heat and grit. By the third day, a sandstorm hit, turning the world into a wall of blinding yellow dust. They pressed their faces into the fabric of their headscarves, guiding the horses by touch alone until the wind died down. That night, the temperature plummeted. They huddled near a small fire, the only light for miles. A group of riders appeared on the ridge. The thief pulled the scholar into the shadow of a rock formation, holding his breath until the bandits passed. Once the danger faded, he pulled back his sleeve, revealing a jagged scar on his shoulder. He traced the mark with a steady finger. "I was not always a thief," he said, his voice low against the crackle of the flames. "I was a servant in that palace. They blamed me for a theft I never committed, and I spent years waiting for a chance to set the record straight." The dunes shifted under the horses' hooves, a vast, featureless landscape that seemed to swallow the horizon. The scholar pointed to a specific ripple in the sand, matching the lines on the parchment. The thief dismounted, his boots sinking into the loose grit. He began to dig. He used his hands, pushing aside tons of sand, his fingernails tearing against the abrasive surface. Blood stained the sand, dark red. But he did not stop. His fingers struck something hard. Stone. He cleared the debris, revealing a massive, arched gate buried for centuries. He pushed against the heavy slab. It groaned, sliding back to reveal a dark, cavernous throat. They stepped inside. The air changed instantly, cooling and smelling of sharp ozone. Golden pillars stretched upward into the gloom, and blue domes caught the flickering torchlight, casting long, dancing shadows. The scale of the place was suffocating. The thief paused, his hand dropping to the hilt of his blade. The silence here was too heavy, too deliberate. He turned, scanning the entrance they had just passed. A pebble skittered across the floor, echoing like a gunshot in the vast hall. They were not alone. Someone had tracked them across the burning sands, and the hunter was now inside the gate. The thief signaled the scholar to move toward the center, his eyes locked on the darkness behind the pillars. The air grew thick with the static of an approaching threat. A shadow detached itself from the obsidian pillar. The Sultan's minister stepped into the torchlight, his blade drawn and steady. He did not speak. He lunged. The thief pivoted, the steel of his own sword meeting the minister's in a sharp, ringing clash. They traded blows, moving in a tight circle around the throne. The minister was faster, his strikes precise and heavy, forcing the thief to retreat toward the cold stone walls. A blade grazed the thief's arm, but he ignored the sting, dropping to one knee to sweep the minister's legs. The minister stumbled, his balance wavering for a heartbeat. That was the opening. The thief shoved him back toward the entrance, turned, and sprinted for the obsidian throne. He reached the base, his fingers fumbling for the hidden slot. He slammed the sapphire home. The floor groaned. A deep, rhythmic thrumming vibrated through the stone, shaking dust from the ceiling. A pulse of white light erupted from the throne's base, expanding with violent speed. The minister dropped his sword, his hands flying to his face. The blinding brilliance receded, replaced by the sound of rushing water beneath the city. The thief and the scholar emerged from the stone gate, standing on the dunes as the parched earth began to darken. Below them, the dry channels filled, sending life-giving streams into the neglected districts of the city. He looked at the gold and jewels scattered near the throne, then turned his back on them. He did not take a single coin. He mounted his horse, the animal restless under the rising sun. He watched the water reach the poorest homes, the dust settling as green shoots broke through the sand. His past as a thief dissolved in the clarity of the morning. He nudged his horse forward, leaving the palace and the city behind. He rode toward the distant horizon, his path no longer defined by vaults or shadows. He was the silent guardian now, his life committed to the land he had saved.